Happy Friday, Rock Creek Fellowship. Can I tell you something I've been thinking about? I've been thinking about someone I like so much more than I like kale. Now, of course, that doesn't limit the universe down because, frankly, I like all living creatures more than I like kale. But Paul Tournier was a Swiss psychiatrist whose work I admire deeply and from whom I have benefited quite a bit. And he had such a pronounced ministry of healing in Switzerland as a physician who became something of a psychiatrist, but mainly he had a counseling ministry. And he said people would come and try to inquire from him, how is it that you're bringing such healing, such liberation to people, such repair to the inner men and women as they come into your counseling office? And he answered, it's quite embarrassing because I have to tell people, really, I just listened to them. That in and of itself is instructive. He recognized there's a great power in creating the space to listen to another, to value them by taking them in, letting yourself be altered by their story, by their pain, by their anguish, by their despair, by their confusion, by their hopes. But he also encountered something else in all that listening. He recognized this, that people only become conscious of what's going on inside of them when they are able to fully express it to someone else. You only are aware of these vague intuitions, these vague senses of things inside yourself when you can finally give articulate expression of it to another person. All of you have experienced this in some way before. You've had something that's really bugging you. Your conscience has been bothering you, and you've known the liberation of saying it out loud. Or having the realization as you're talking through a problem of putting it into words and finding, that's what's been troubling me. It was vague, it was inarticulate, it was just a noose around your neck, it was a burden on your shoulders until you could put it into words. And then there was some kind of liberation, there was some kind of connection made, some kind of refreshment given. Well, I've been thinking about that very concept as it relates to specifically our children in the church, but also all of us. The Apostle Paul said something very similar to Paul Tournier. I want you to be active in sharing your faith so that you may be aware of every good thing that you have in Christ Jesus. Well, isn't that the same exact thing that Tournier said? That Paul wants you to know that until you are talking to people about your faith, until you are expressing dimensions of the reality of God inside of you, putting what's going on inside of you, the invasion of Christ that has happened to you, publishing it in the world in some way, in little sentences, in conversations, working it into your life, until you give expression to it, you don't fully get it. So to not share your faith is guaranteeing yourself a certain bereftness, a certain deprivation of the warmth and the wonder that Christ means to communicate to you in his love for you. But it's only fully realized when it's shared. It's interesting that Jesus says a similar thing to the Gerasene demoniac, one of the only people that I know of in the scriptures who asks to follow Jesus, and Jesus tells him no. He tries to get in the boat to go with Jesus, and Jesus says, no, not you, my friend. I want you to go back to all your family, everybody around you, and tell them everything that the Lord has done for you. Here was an eager person saying, please let me follow you, Jesus. Please let me follow you, Jesus. And Jesus said, not today. Your task is to take all this activity, all this mercy you've received, all this liberation you've encountered, put it into words, publish it for the people around you. Jesus knew also that his excitement would only grow as he shared it, and that others would be welcomed into it as well. I think this works for gratitude. It works for talking to people who are Christians. We can embolden each other with our faith, talking to non-Christians about our faith. Of course, we're going to be nervous sometimes. Of course, we're going to falter. We're going to seem inarticulate, but that's how we get better at it. We have to be willing to do it badly before we can do it well. So I want us to think about that, and I'm going to be praying How do we as a church continue to help our children and one another articulate the reality of Christ in us and Christ for us and Christ as King of the world and our entering into that fully? How do we communicate it to a world who doesn't believe in external realities anymore, only in what they feel inside, and they're only able to express their desires, not what Christ has done for them, not what Christ has done to them, not what they believe Christ will be on their behalf as they walk through this complicated and dangerous world that he means to redeem as he has propped himself up against its ruin. You think about that. We'll see you soon.